What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Featherhead Crypto. I am Featherhead, and today we'll be speaking with CEO of Loci, John Wise. Should be a very interesting conversation, especially if you've never heard of them. They're doing some pretty crazy things over there. Before we get into the conversation, though, for full disclosure, I am an ambassador for Loci. Um, I'm not getting paid to do this video. They're offering me a very, very small amount of tokens to be an ambassador. This isn't a requirement or anything. Truth be told, I'm just really interested in the project. I've been following their work for well over a year now, and I think it's kind of one of those diamonds in the rough. And there's not very many out there in the crypto space anymore, so I kind of want to bring some or shed some light on this project as much as I possibly can. For no reason other than the fact that I just like it. I think it's amazing. I'm sure you'll see exactly what I see in it here in a few minutes. Before we get into it, I guess I should remind you that I am not a financial advisor in any way. Everything that you're about to hear is strictly my opinion and, the opinion of my guests on the show, I guess. But I hope you enjoy, and thanks for joining us here. Okay, guys, we're here with John Wise, CEO of Loci. How you doing, John?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here.
Been a little while since I've done a podcast.
Yeah, yeah. How you been doing?
Been great, man. Been traveling a little bit. I was out in San Francisco and LA for about 3 weeks. Just kind of heads down, working away. Haven't been doing nearly as much of the conferences or the road show as I had before. So it's nice. We get a lot of work done in the office and a lot of work done in the company now. We're really pushing a lot of new updates. So I'm excited. Heads down has been good.
No more building engines for race cars?
No, I haven't put together an engine for a while. In fact, actually, I really was never much of the engine guy. I was much more the chassis, suspension, and aerodynamics guy.
Gotcha. Still pretty cool, though.
Thanks. I got a couple of race suits in the background there.
Yeah, I see that. So I guess we should just get into this here.
Sure.
Well, actually, I've been following you guys for quite a while. I mean, I know I've been active in the community.
Yeah, we've loved having you, man.
Yeah, I've enjoyed being around. But I guess for me, what got me involved with Loci was that I wouldn't call myself an inventor, but I'm like an inventor wannabe. Ever since I was a kid, I mean, I don't know if I told you this or not, but have you ever heard of a poor boy patent?
A poor boy Oh, so where you send yourself a certified letter?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a public disclosure. That's basically what we do with the blockchain.
I did that when I was like 15 years old, and I still have it. Or
Nice.
I wrote my ideas down on paper and mailed it off to myself, and it gets timestamped. So essentially, if you go to court over it, someone stealing your idea, you have proof that it was your idea at that date.
Yeah, as long as it's still sealed.
Yeah. It's still sealed. It's been a while.
Yeah, some like this first to file laws changed some of that. But I do want to reiterate something that you had said. You said you're not an inventor. I think everybody's an inventor, man. Just like everybody's a musician, right? We think, especially Americans, think that if we haven't sold a record or we haven't produced an album, then we're not musicians. But I mean, I beg to differ, right? You can sing, you can stomp your feet, you can clap, you can, snap your fingers, whistle along, whatever. You're a musician, right? It's in the eye of the beholder of to what level. The same goes with inventing. Anytime I hear somebody say, "Oh, I'm not an inventor," it's like, okay, well, have you ever had a problem in your life? If
Right.
the answer is yes, usually I say, okay, well, do you still have that problem? No. Well, then you're an inventor because you obviously invented a solution for it. Whether that thing has been invented before or has existed before, that's a different story. Right? But everybody's an inventor. Everybody has an idea. Everybody that has a problem has to figure out a solution.
Right. I like that a lot because people get so discouraged. I mean, I guess kind of like I did, but especially whenever you come up against something like when you're actually pursuing a patent and understanding the language that they supply is just it's so discouraging. It kind of pushes you away from it. But with Loci, it seems to make it a lot easier. That's what caught my interest to begin with.
Yeah,
So I
not
guess
just easier, but faster and cheaper as well.
oh exactly, yeah. Which I guess brings me to my first question is what is Loci?
So you can think of us basically as, well, we used to refer to it as the eBay for intellectual property or for inventions, right? I think more appropriately now is that we're much closer to like the Uberification of inventions or Spotify of invention. Now, I hate doing these comparisons to other companies because we're different and unique in a lot of different ways. But in a nutshell, we're a one-stop shop for inventors. We aim to make it as cheap and easy as humanly possible to come up with an invention and to even monetize that invention. The reason that we do this is that if we make inventing fun, cheap, easy, and effective, then people don't need to wait for these $1 million ideas. They can come out with the $10 ideas or $100 ideas, right? If you really think about it, some of the greatest inventions of human history never made a single dollar, right? Even things like Edison's light bulb. He was locked in lawsuits and litigation trying to go the standard patent route for the first 18 or 19 years of the patent life. He didn't make a dollar off the thing until the 19th year. This is the light bulb, right? Again, the internet. The internet has never itself made a dollar, but it's been there for other people to be built up upon, right? And build technology on top of it and expand. The same goes with blockchain. Right? Blockchain never made a dollar. The technology itself is just a ledger. Penicillin, you look at the history is written by these inventions that were not $1 million ideas.
Right.
Right. They weren't $1 ideas, but they've made trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of impact and have fundamentally shifted and changed people's lives. So that's the point, right? Let's make inventing as easy, as cheap, and fast as possible so everybody can get an idea out there.
Yeah, quite frankly, it's long overdue, in my opinion.
Agreed. Agreed. It was one of those things, like you and so many, right? I had these ideas way back in 2008 with my dad, and we kept waiting and hoping for somebody to do it. And after a while, I just said, all right, well, I guess we're going to have to file a patent on this. And so, my dad and I drafted this tiny little patent, as you've probably seen. It's 897 pages. I think
Right.
It's still to date one of the largest, if not the largest patent in the world. That was my first one. And it was quite literally the patent to end the patent system. Right. It was like, well, nobody's going to do this. Nobody else has figured it out. And it didn't matter how much I tried to yell it from the rooftops. Nobody was going to pick it up because it just didn't make sense for them economically. And so I set out on this journey to change that.
Well, I'm glad you did. Actually, I'd skipped that first question on accident about your background. You kind of touched on it there. Is there anything else that you want to mention on what brought you about with Loci?
Yeah, so for 15 years, ever since I was about 12 years old, I had been working on cars and was just fascinated by those things. I don't really know what got me into it. Nobody in my family is into cars or anything mechanical for that matter. But yeah, since I was about 12, I started working on cars, started as a mechanic and got into racing actually first before working on any street cars, and then continued up until I actually became one of the leading race car engineers in this country, if not in the world. I've won 9 national championships and 4 world championships.
Wow.
I've worked on race cars, jets, and rockets. I've sent satellites into space. Worked on Bombardier jets and Gulfstreams and Lears. I've worked on Formula One cars. I've worked on Le Mans winning cars. I've worked on Daytona winning cars. Actually, the uniforms back there both were from Le Mans. The one on my right is from Le Mans, and the one from on the left is from Daytona. From the 24-hour of both of those. Those are both Rolex races. Two of the most difficult races in the world. I've raced at Monaco. I've raced at Nürburgring Nordschleife. I've raced at Silverstone. I've raced all around the world.
That's a pretty crazy track record there. Quite literally.
Yeah, I've got I'll show you some of the trophies and stuff. Hold on.
All right.
Yeah. Here. Trophies.
Nice.
Sitting here. That's a Daytona car.
Nice.
So.
And you're gonna sell that gear on Loci? Is that what you were saying? Loci Search? Or
No, that stuff's mine. That stuff is mine.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I have a very weird memory to begin with, so I try to keep some memorabilia around of triumphant things, exciting things.
Yeah, you can't get rid of stuff like that.
Racing a 24-hour race is a wild thing because you're up for the drivers get to rest. There's usually 3 to 5 drivers. Most of the time 4. The drivers get to rest. They do 2-hour and 45-minute stints usually. But the engineers and mechanics are often up for 48 to 72 hours straight, the entire time. That's insane. While the car's running around. Yeah. So how that got me into Loci. One thing a lot of people don't realize is that racing is actually the most innovative industry in the world. It doesn't sound like it, right? But what we would do is for one, everybody in a race team has a very, very, very clear plan and action, right? Make the car faster and make sure it doesn't break. Right. If you think about it, how many other jobs do you have thousands of people working for one goal? Make the thing not break and make it go faster. Even in rockets and satellites, right? You're like, oh, well, there's a team for the array, and there's a team for the solar elements, and there's a team for the radio elements, and there's the rocket team and the propulsion team, and all these different things. But in a race team, it's like there's engine guys, chassis guys, suspension guys, aerodynamics guys, cooling guys, and electronics. Everybody's making the car faster in every single way they can. And actually, I'll get into that in a little bit as well, kind of give you a little bit more background and color. But so let me ask you this, Micah. What do you think a Formula One car costs?
Way too much. $1 million.
Give me an idea. $1 million is reasonable, right? If you look at like a NASCAR car, it's about $275K. A Formula One car is 220 million euros per car, and we built 10 to 16 of them a year.
Wow. Okay.
So we're talking about a $2 billion budget for 1 year to make a car go faster.
Jesus.
Think about the amount of engineering and design that goes into something like that, right? You're not filing paperwork. You're not filing patents. You're not publishing anything. So the thing I try to explain is that in racing, we would discover a problem. We would theorize a solution, build a prototype for that solution, test that prototype, build the end product, and have the end product in the end consumer's hands in the lifespan of a day. And we did that every day for almost 15 years.
That's crazy. Kept you on your toes.
Reason, yeah, exactly. But the reason, that led me to Loci was when I finally left that space, I was like just dumbfounded at how long innovation takes, when I knew full well that with, tens of thousands of different people that I worked with and thousands of inventions and ideas that I had worked on, how fast it really could go. I had seen it firsthand over 15 years, how fast innovation can be and the huge impacts. For instance, hybrid cars, right, came from KERS power units. It's kinetic energy recovery systems. We'd been doing that in the early 2000s, right? 3D printing came from rapid prototyping that I've been a part of since like 97, right? Autonomous driving was in the Williams F1 car in 1994, driving 220 miles an hour, fully autonomous. The driver was only sitting in the car because the rules mandated it. The rule book required there to be a driver. We didn't need a driver. The steering turned, the suspension changed, the throttle and brakes all changed. Everything was electronically driven. IoT came from data analytics from racing all the way back to like the mid 80s, maybe even 70s, right? Like all of these things, you got seat belts, you've got different kinds of crumple zones, engines, diesel power, electric power. All of this stuff came from racing. And it all came in a span where nobody bothered with any sort of documentation or patents. It's like that is what I try to bring to the masses here and really consumerize something that has been industrialized and commercialized unnecessarily.
So how would you say Loci helps protect intellectual property?
Well, so the protection element's twofold, right? There's two sides to this coin. Do you know what you actually get granted when you're granted a patent? What rights do you get? Do you get the right to monetize it?
I'm not sure exactly. So I know you
don't get the right to monetize it.
It's pretty specific, isn't it? Like you have
no, kind of, sort of.
You get 20 years.
Yep, you get 20 years of one thing. Right? What's that one thing? Is it the right to produce? No. Is it the right to sell? Nope. Is it the right to monetize and earn money from it? Nope. Is it the right to say that you're the owner? Maybe. But really the only thing that you're granted when you receive a granted patent is the right to defend it. Congratulations, you spent all this money. Now you can go and spend money fighting somebody else.
In court.
Yep. If you can prove it. Sorry, what was your question? It was how are we changing it?
How does Loci protect intellectual property exactly? Like I know public disclosure and whatnot gives you a little bit of protection for 12 months?
Yeah, so do you want to go into the nuanced like technical elements of the legal side? And if so, I do need to say I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a patent agent. I'm speaking as an inventor, not giving legal advice.
Right. Yeah, I think I covered the both of us in the intro.
Okay. So do you want to go down that side, or do you want to go down the use case side of like, what does protection mean, and is there a better way to do it than protection?
Let's go down the use case side.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
So if the only right that you get when you get a granted patent is the right to defend it, then what you're actually after is monetizing, right? You're actually after getting some money for the idea that you've had in the first place, right? Just like owning a piece of property, right? It's intellectual property and it's called property for a reason. Just like owning an actual land piece of property, you either want to have that to live on, as if in intellectual property, building a business and selling the products, or you want to be able to make money from having that land. The same goes in invention or intellectual property. Now, intellectual property, for those that don't know, is not just limited to inventions. It's also trademarks and copyrights. And that's another can of worms that we can go into some. But the fundamental point, though, is what you really want is to be able to earn money from your idea, whether it be unimpeded from competition, so that you can go and build your product and not be worried about being sued or somebody else just stealing it, or whether it be from licensing or sale of your invention. So let's look back at a recent history that did the same sort of process, right? If you look at something like the music industry, we had radio broadcasting for a long time, right? And then as soon as music was able to be turned into something that could be distributed, like records, for instance, record labels came around because the production cost of these things was very expensive, and they needed to have the network and they needed to distribute this stuff. So record labels came around. Now we've got broadcasting and distribution. Now those record labels stood the test of time through records, cassettes, CDs, 8-tracks, all that stuff, all the way up until digitization. As soon as music and media was digitized, now you had a huge amount of demand from consumers, and you had a huge amount of supply, right? People could come up with their music and get it out there just even faster than music labels actually could produce and edit the stuff. This is an important point, and the reason I'm making this point is that even though it sounds like these are two completely different industries, the music space is the copyright industry. Music and media is very much copyright. Again, there are 3 pillars to intellectual property: trademarks, like logos, names, graphics; copyright, which is text or vocals or music, media, whatever else there. And then lastly is patents, which is inventions, design, utility things, in some cases mathematics, genetics, and some cases business plans. So in that space, we had a huge amount of demand and we had a huge amount of supply. But the record labels really wanted to restrict that flow back to the time when they were distributing CDs. It didn't work, right? The cat was out of the bag. So they couldn't get the material that people wanted out in the world fast enough. What happened? The market revolted. Napster was born. And nearly overnight, in about 9 months, Napster went from 0 users with absolutely no marketing, no advertising, and no business plan, raising no capital, to 20 million users in about a year.
Wow.
Okay. Literally billions and billions and billions of dollars of loss came, right? It was a massive hit. Well, today Napster's not around. But why not? Did the laws change? No, it was still illegal, right? It was still illegal. Did the technology change? No, you can still pirate music every bit as easily. Well, how did the market fix this? How did the market correct this? Ease of use. They made products and applications like iTunes, Spotify, and Pandora so cheap and so easy to use with no risk, very little risk. You weren't concerned about getting a virus or something like that when you downloaded music. It was a lot less work. And they just made it so fast and so easy that they created a massive amount of liquidity for music and media.
Right.
That's essentially what we're doing as well. So on one side, we've got this, in-app patent filing that we've just released. I'm sure we'll talk about that more in a minute. We've also got the blockchain posting, and that's really focused on protecting. But it's also more nuanced that what we're really focusing on, what we're really trying to emphasize is getting ideas out in the world, making them discoverable, making them easy to transact, and as fast as possible so that every single idea, whether it's worth $10 or $10 billion, can get out there. That is the same sort of interface and experience that companies like Spotify, Pandora, and iTunes have done for the world. And we're doing the same thing for Invention.
Well, I think I'm going to ask you one more quick question and then we'll take a quick break. Your product, Loci Search, could you describe that quickly and how exactly it works?
Yeah, sorry, the last one was a long-winded response.
No, you're good. It's good information.
Do you want to know the origin story of how Loci Search came about as well, or do you want to just know how it works?
We can. Yeah, let's touch on how it came about and then
sure.
how exactly it works.
Sure. So when I went to file my first patent, I realized something very fundamental. And for future reference here, by the way, when I say I, it was also my dad is the co-inventor of a lot of this stuff with me, so it's really both of us. He was my sounding board on a lot of this. But I realized that there was a fundamental problem that was getting overlooked, right? When an inventor comes up with something new, he or she also names that invention. Doesn't sound like a problem until you realize that every search engine was using keyword searching, right? And that inventor is the only one in the world that has the keyword.
Right.
So how are you going to find it? How are you going to find something exactly the same, let alone something that's similar, right? And then when you bury it even further inside of the legalese is what it's called. Just it's like it's its own language, the legal documenting language that lawyers write. It's ridiculous. When you bury it in all of that, how do you ever find it? So we embarked on creating this contextual search engine that actually uses information about the way that somebody searches for things as opposed to what it's called or what it's used for to understand what something fundamentally is. We're still building that out, and that takes a long time to really, completely change the way that searching is done. But the good half step was Loci Search, and it was very simple. We wanted to get down to the relevant things as fast as possible, right? We wanted to determine what was relevant, what was at least close or similar to what an inventor was coming up with. And so what we did was we created 4 searches similar to a Google search, and each search has a correlated circle. And now instead of displaying the results as a list like Google does, where you've got all this text and you've got page after page after page, what we did is we displayed all the results as just dots. So in our system, every dot is a patent. And then you overlay all 4 of those searches and those circles into a Venn diagram. Immediately, you can see the things that are most relevant sitting right in the middle.
Yeah, that seems a lot
like having four Google searches where you can determine exactly which needle in a haystack you're looking for.
Right. I've always thought Google was kind of inefficient in that way, where the people that paid the most basically were listed at the top, and everything else just gets buried. They know
that's capitalism. That's capitalism in software, buddy.
Right. Yeah, nobody's going to go through 10, 20 pages of listings to find what they're looking for.
Yeah, so that works really well for things like where do I want to eat dinner? Right, because that really is like a needle in a haystack. Needles in haystacks are very easy to find when you have a magnet. But for us, it's more like I want this specific length needle in a basket of needles that I've just thrown into a haystack. Right. You're like, okay, how am I going to go through all of these things? Right. That's really what searching for an invention's like. It's one of the most arduous tasks, and it often takes people, and not necessarily in our system, but in the older process, it took hundreds of hours, and you had to film and document that you did an exhaustive search in order to be able to have legal defensibility, and you had to basically be a lawyer to understand all this. It was a mess. It's a mess.
Right. Well, all right, John, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be right back with you, I guess.
Sounds good.
All right, we're back, and let's get on to the next question.
Sounds good.
What is the
Who wants to be a millionaire? Sorry, couldn't help it. Couldn't help it.
I'm getting better, I guess. What is the invention analysis tool, and how does it work?
Yeah, so that's one of those tools, one of those products that we rolled out that acts and looks very simple, but has a lot of deep tech behind it. So anytime somebody drafts something, and actually soon we'll be making it so that anybody can upload new files, images, all sorts of other things into it. When they do that, they can actually do a comparison in phrase and context and keywords and all sorts of other stuff between the drafting and the information that they got in the system and any other patent in the world. Now soon we're actually going to be expanding it even further. We've got two, right now it's Invention Analysis 1.0. We've got another 2.0 and 3.0 that we're looking at coming out with. possibly both this year. The next one is going to be a much deeper analysis, kind of like comparing fingerprints between two different things. It's going to be claim by claim and like certain phraseology. And then we're also going to be rolling out into research papers, medical journals, and at its peak, I think we'll be able to get to comparisons with products as well, which may actually be able to help people understand if their invention's being infringed upon with a product rather than another invention, right?
Right. So it's like the Snuggie situation. Did you ever hear about that?
The Snuggie. No, tell me about this.
Yeah, it's actually not even the Snuggie. It's like the Slackit, or no, the Slackit, or some weird name. Some college kid. He was like 20 years old. He he had a long story. He explained like he would wear a blanket when he was watching TV, but he always had to pull it off to eat popcorn. So his mom would cut holes in the blanket, and that's
Okay.
It was called the Slanket or something weird, but I guess China or whatever found out about it, and they created the Snuggie, and it just blew up. Man, he lost.
I think the Snuggie was made in the U.S. actually.
Oh, was it? Well, somebody took
Yeah.
it from him, took the idea and ran with it, and nobody even knows about the original.
Yeah. Well, that's typically how it is. To be really blunt, like our entire perception or concept of what a good idea is way skewed, right? Like you think about it, if somebody came out with a new light bulb, like when LED light bulbs came out, right? They're great. Everybody loves them. But is that a good idea? It's not really, the end of the world. But yeah, it's a good idea. The point is like a light bulb itself was only a good idea during the time when it was released. We got to stop thinking of whether or not something's a good idea or a valid idea based on how much money it can make. We got to think about how novel it is and how impactful it can be. Whenever we get into like things like valuation metrics, when we're trying to understand and create new valuation metrics for inventions, I always kind of ask why. Why are we creating valuation metrics? And this coming from somebody that has created a massive valuation metric that's in my patents. Again, that 897-page beast. Valuation metrics are only accurate for a very, very, very limited window of time. But then they get completely destroyed when you look at something like a hand spinner. A hand spinner had been patented in like 1974.
Really?
Right. Yeah. It had expired. It had lifed out. And then 20 years later, $6 billion in revenue in a year.
Wow.
Why? Does that make a hand spinner a good idea? No, it's utterly useless. There's nothing of value there. It's bearings on a little thing that's a fidget, it's a novelty item. Right? But the point is, like, that led to some other innovations and some other stuff, most of which was useless. But I think that's a much more accurate like validator of if something's a good idea. Is it useful? Does it fix a legitimate problem?
Like the guy that when you drink a coffee, the sleeves that they have on them.
Yeah.
Like little cardboard sleeves. There's a guy that actually patented that, and he gets something like 5 cents for every sleeve in the world. Like.
Yeah, that was in a movie. I mean, the guy that really did that,
or was it
likely
someone else?
gets way, 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 way less of a royalty. Yeah. Like a friend of mine's dad is the inventor of the K cup, the Keurig K cup, and he's the inventor of the Keurig. His name is not Keurig, by the way.
It's K.
And yeah, right. He gets a pretty good royalty and licensing because he also does every 7-Eleven and gas station thing in the world, right? And he gets a great royalty on the stuff. But most of the amount that they get is really just to recoup their legal expenses and fees. And that's most of what it comes down to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm actually one of my high school teachers. He was my high school teacher and my college professor. He co-patented the thumbprint scanner for like doorway entries.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an impactful invention. It's a really impactful invention. There's all sorts of uses, and I would argue tens of thousands of other inventions that have been built on top of that. And like that, again, for me, usefulness is a really great measure of whether something is a good idea or not. And then the other is how many inventions were built on top of that. How many other things have you given birth to? That's really what's incredible.
Right. So as far as user base for Loci, I looked at a website that actually showed. Well, I'm sure it wasn't exact, but
Sure.
it showed a drastic increase in like the last 6 months in at least visits for your website. Does that translate over to actual users? Has the user base increased?
Yes, quite a lot. Ever since really invention analysis, we've had a steady growth. I mean, we're growing 100% month over month user base, and I don't know when this video is going to come out, but I would hope that it would still be accurate. And that's over the last several months or so. But yeah, really, we started getting very accurate about user acquisition costs, about things like AdWords, Google AdWords, and advertising and marketing and whatnot. We've gotten our costs way down, and it's enabled us to really focus on getting a lot of users. I mean, I think we've had somewhere around 230,000 visitors to Loci's site.
Wow.
And I want to say we've got about 11,000 users right now, which is fantastic. We've got great conversion. I think 40 to 50% in conversion, and like under $3 in customer acquisition cost right now, which is really
incredible.
My marketing team's killing it.
I see MindHive and Red Blue Collective behind you. Who all are Loci's? I know some of them myself, but for the viewers, who all are Loci's partners, and who are you specifically working with right now?
That's a long list. We're working with a lot of universities, kind of doing some beta programs with them. Their universities are very strict about using their name until formal announcements and things along those lines. We'd rather ask for permission rather than apology or forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And they're such legitimate places that we really don't want to burn that bridge. So we're working with a lot of universities. We're working with a lot of law firms. MindHive and Red Blue Collective. Red Blue Collective is a hardware accelerator and incubator. And MindHive, basically an invention accelerator. So anybody that was having an idea, that had an idea, we'd actually give them completely free, no royalty, no equity, no revenue share, no cost, office space, co-working, and let them use Loci to really refine their invention and their creation. And for those that ask, well, what do you get in return? We get users that are testing the product, inventors that are testing the product in the office, and real inventors that are inspiring our developers and the rest of our team to like really see what the process of innovation is like firsthand. I mean, that's an amazing thing. That's something that money cannot buy. Mm-hmm. And it's been really, really incredible. We had three companies this last time around. We had VineTech, Binbox, and The Most Curls. They were all fantastic. We've got some videos that will be coming out soon. Then we've also got Walton Chain. We've got, I'm going to forget a few of them for sure. Salt. I mean, we haven't really been doing much with them. I don't think we've formally ended the partnership, but there's, to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of the direction of where they're going.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of been a while since you all announced them. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were. I mean, we became partners back in mid 2017. I think we were one of the first ICO kind of partnerships
Hmm.
and collaborations. Um, there are a lot. I mean, I can actually get a list together, but
Oh, you're good.
there are a lot. They're on the website. I'm gonna forget people,
Right, they're
and then I'm
listed
gonna
somewhere.
feel really bad.
Don't want to hurt any feelings.
Yeah.
Um, so could you help us understand more about what Loci Protect is? Your all's newer feature.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's really exciting. So, yeah, we just launched in-app provisional patent filing. Um, Now, dating back to December 2017, we already had blockchain posting, but we've dramatically improved like the way that gets done. Um, and so now any inventor can actually file a U.S. Provisional patent and then post on the blockchain. And what that does is it secures public disclosure rights and in some cases court admissibility globally during the same sort of window. Do you want me to go into like the nuance of how the law works? And like, there are things that I find really interesting, but I don't know
Sure,
if
man.
everybody does. Um, so international trade law is a really interesting thing. The reason that we have like .com, .net, and .edu is because it actually denotes where the data is physically stored, right? It's stored in US servers. .co.jp is in Japan, for instance. .co.uk is in the UK or Great Britain. The reason for that is that it creates a common law basis. So if somebody steals media or music or intellectual property off of a .com, they have to come to the U.S. to defend themselves legally. Okay, the courts are actually fought in the U.S. We looked at this a while ago and we're like, oh my God, a distributed ledger is perfect for this. Because even though it may be over a .com, posting something on a blockchain, an invention or a public disclosure right, means that it's literally in every single country where anybody logs into this thing. And so it's a big deterrent because if anybody steals that thing, and then we've got all sorts of other nuances about how they really can't, but if anybody tries to steal that, now they don't know which country they're going to get fought in, and more than likely also in their own country. So it removes the patentability in almost all other countries and does that after already having a patent in the U.S.
Yeah, that's got to be a pretty frustrating issue, especially with the China ordeal. Actually,
So can we go into the China ordeal just a second, because it's very misunderstood. I think.
well, actually, that ties into a question I have from my community.
Sure.
If you just want to answer that, from Lucas, he read that there are about 3 million patents filed each year. He wants to
In which
know.
country?
Yeah, I should have asked specifics.
In the U.S.
Yeah, he wants to know if Loci has a target as to how many of these patents will be filed using your all's site, and he also mentioned that 40% of those patents filed annually are from China. Is Loci
Yep.
working on a solution to China's theft of intellectual property?
Sure. So, what we keep earmarking as theft really isn't so much theft. It's much more a misalignment of laws. To be really blunt, the U.S. lawmakers screwed up. What the U.S. did is they put the burden of proof on the inventor. They put the burden of proof on the defendant, basically, as opposed to putting the burden. Well, I shouldn't even say defendant, but as opposed to putting the burden of proof on the attacker, right? In China, if somebody steals your IP, then you have the ability to basically go after them completely unrestrained. All of the burden of proof that they didn't steal it rests on the person that stole the IP. In the US, if somebody steals your IP, all the burden of proof that they did steal it rests on the inventor. Mm. And most other countries, the burden of proof is on the attacker or the thief, not on the defendant, or sorry, on the inventor.
Right.
What that did is it made a huge misalignment in laws, because basically they can steal something and they say, oh, well, the US has the burden of proof on the inventor. They have to prove that I've stolen it. If they stole a Chinese patent, it's a totally different story. So theft of IP or patents inside of China is very, very, very low, right? But theft of US patents, theft is very high, because there's this misalignment, right? They give the benefit to the attacker, or sorry, we give the benefit to the attacker and they give the benefit to the defender. It's like, well, so it's really much more our fault than anything else. I like to kind of analogize. You can think of the US as the record labels and China as Napster. Right? The people stealing it really would rather buy it, right? Because the legal risk and all these other things, it's still very expensive. They'd really rather just license it for the right amount of money.
And then
but it's Loci. So hard to do. It's so hard for them to do. They have to come to the US. They have to get a US lawyer. They have to go through all this rigmarole. It's a mess. Sorry, what was
I
that you just said?
And then steps Loci, making it a little
easier.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what we're really focusing on, is making it so cheap and so easy for anybody to come up with an idea and monetize it, and also do that public disclosure event on the blockchain so that it actually blocks somebody in China from being able to patent it. We basically get the rules or the laws from both sides. Now, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm certainly not an international lawyer. But there's a lot of nuances that I've gone through with this. So that was the second part of the question. What was the first half of this question?
He wants to know an estimate of what percentage.
How many patents would be filed through us?
Yeah. What's your amount that you plan to reach? It's, that he's basically saying there's a lot of people that file patents every year, and he's wanting to know how much you all expect to reach out to.
I would say probably 10 or 15 times the global patent registry. So right now, 3 million patents are filed a year, but it costs about $100,000 on average to do this, right? Our process to do the searching, invention analysis, and Loci Protect, to actually file a provisional patent and put it on the blockchain, is $129. So how many people would be able to file patents?
A lot.
If that was it. Now, also to be clear, that's the cost that goes to Loci. The USPTO also has an $89 to $99 filing fee, depending on if you qualify for low income, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so basically for under 250, under $300, you should be able to go through all of that process and get a patent. So for the near term, I would love to be able to say, I think it's realistic to have 50 to 60 million patents filed a year through us.
Which is insane.
In the long term,
awesome.
I think that patents are probably going to go away. And I'll prove it to you with another example of intellectual property. When's the last time that you listened to Spotify or Pandora?
Pandora?
Yeah.
I listen to Pandora a couple times a week while I'm at work, I guess.
Okay. And when's the last time you wondered about the copyright for that song that you listened to?
I haven't.
Never. Never, right? The point is, another example. When's the last time you got in an Uber and asked to see the Uber driver's license?
Never.
Exactly, right? If you make it efficient, effective, and low enough cost, but also low enough value and low enough risk, then you don't really need that piece of paper, right? You don't need to go through the examination. the crowd vets these things, right? But like Spotify with thumbs ups and thumbs downs, and Pandora, or Uber, right, giving an actual rating. The crowd verifies these things, and then with the right kind of network and understanding of the database, you really can do away with it altogether. I think blockchain posting will likely be the examination of the future, and it will probably be crowd examination and probably do away with patents.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's I guess I never really considered that.
Well, look, patents are a legal thing, right? Patents are a legal thing. Now, today, we have globalization of voice through things like podcasts, right? We have a globalization of our lives through things like Instagram or whatever else, right? Social media itself. We have global networks. We have global markets, stock markets. We have global currencies through cryptocurrency, right? The one thing we don't have is globalization of law. There is no global law. But when you're talking about globalizing trade and commerce and all of these other things, it kind of makes you wonder, well, why the fuck do we still have these patents if software is distributed across continents in milliseconds?
Yep.
Well, who's going to defend this? Who's going to even verify this thing? We're literally transacting math between each other. It's absurd if you actually think about it. So that, again, that's where intellectual property and invention and blockchain is perfect, because we can register that somebody had an idea without having to go through the process of drafting up, in this legal language, writing these long documents and text, showing certain images and all this other stuff, and putting it as a piece of paper in an office in Virginia. That's ridiculous.
And this is exactly what got me excited about this project, because it's, in my opinion, it's just huge.
It can be. And thank you for all the support.
I mean, because that's got to be one of the most discouraging things for someone trying to patent something. Not even to mention the fact that it's like learning a whole new language, trying to even read. It's like they deliberately designed it so you would just get discouraged and not follow through.
Well, there's the question. So, who deliberately designed it for that?
I don't know.
So, invention used to be like copyrights and some other trademark things, where it would always stay owned by the inventor. Okay, and then assignment laws came in, and assignments literally means that you can sell the rights to an invention, to an idea. Okay. Now, we already had licensing, so it beckons the question: why do you need to sell something? Well, we wanted to be able to sell it so that corporations, this new invention from, the 20s, let's be blunt here, right? Corporations really hadn't existed longer than 100 years ago, right? So these corporations wanted to be able to own these assets, these invention assets, these patents. The reason that they wanted to do that was because public trading of their stocks was coming around, and they needed to be able to hit their quarter by quarter quota. So they wanted to be able to actually adjust, inflate, and deflate the value of their books, the value of their actual assets. It's so hard to be able to determine what the value of an invention or an idea is. Right? So they wanted as many of these assets as possible. Because of that, they lobbied for these assignment laws. And from there, if you think about it, if no invention needs to be sold or can be sold from one person to another, only licensed, then that really would incentivize people to focus on the functionality of what the thing is. Because you don't need to sue either another inventor or a corporation for stealing it.
Right.
They can't own it anyway. Right? The only thing you would sue for is some of the revenue. Now, if you didn't need to do that, then you also wouldn't need to be very specific about what the thing is, what it does, and you wouldn't need to draft and prosecute patents the way that we do. If you didn't need to do that, you wouldn't have to have examiners that spend so much time actually examining this thing.
Right. Yep.
Literally, if it weren't for assignments, patents would not need to work the way that they do.
Right. So if I'm a young inventor and I'm unfamiliar with this whole process, and I'm just discovering about Loci, where should they go right now to get started?
Oh, the camera's messing up for me, bud.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can now.
Okay. I don't know where you lost me. I'll just start the question over.
If I'm a young inventor,
Yeah, if I'm a young inventor and I'm just starting out, I'm not familiar with any of the process, and I just discovered Loci through this video, where would you recommend that they start out with you guys first?
searching.
At Loci Search?
Yep. Yeah, it's actually, I think, app.loci.io now.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put a link for it.
But search to see if it exists, right? And even before you're doing a patent search, one of the most effective things that I do, just do a search through like Amazon for a product first. Just see if the product exists, right? Because keep in mind, we're a patent, an invention and patents company. We don't yet have products integrated. I mean, even companies like LexisNexis, Westlaw, Google Patents, whatever else, they also don't have products. So start on the product side, see if you can buy the thing first. And then I would probably recommend going to Loci Search from there, and maybe bouncing around between Loci Search and like a Google image search. Not everything is patented. It's really, Loci is really intended to get down into the weeds of actually being able to patent something, or to be able to monetize that idea itself.
So yeah, I've actually used I've used it quite a bit. I've staked, I think, 4 or 5 items.
Wow, nice.
Like I have a
At the beginning of this, you said you're not an inventor, but you've staked 4 inventions.
I guess you're right.
I don't get it.
Well, I mean, I guess we're so programmed into thinking, like you said, if it doesn't make money, you don't really consider it. But I think one of them is like a furnace to heat your house that runs off of water. It doesn't require any electricity whatsoever. Or a cooking stove that runs off of water.
How did you create a furnace that runs off of water?
Have you ever heard of a HHO generator?
I can't say that I have.
Well, to quickly summarize it up, basically it's where you have these stainless steel plates set down in saline solution, so it's salt water, and you hook it up to a battery, and it
separates out the oxygen and hydrogen.
Right, through electrolysis, it pulls the hydrogen out, and you collect the hydrogen, and you use that as fuel. Actually, you can use it to fuel vehicles as well. I don't know why this is not out there yet, but it does exist.
Because it consumes a lot of electricity, right?
Well, the HHO? How's
that? Yeah, I mean, the batteries to run those plates, right?
Right, but if you have some form of like an alternator that keeps it charged, they have, for one, vehicles that run, they just keep recharging the battery, and that's all you need. They actually have weed eaters.
Sure, but there's loss of generation, right? There's energy loss when you have a gas generator charging or spinning an alternator to charge a battery. You've got loss through each of these things. It's like just run a gas furnace, no?
Right. What about solar power?
I'm trying to bust your balls.
No, you're good. These are good.
This is the way that I think. I'm just utterly fascinated by this.
No, you're not shooting me. These are good questions. What about solar power? I mean, you don't even actually need a modern battery. I haven't delved into this too much, but you can actually create a 12-volt battery out of dirt.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of
stuff too.
There's a lot of stuff there that we haven't really. I mean, I'm sure it's been explored, but it's not been exploited and brought out to the public. Like, I feel like there's definitely plenty of solutions there. We don't need this carbon footprint stuff going on, I don't think.
No, I totally agree with you there. So, one of my many flights, and this one was cool, probably 15 years ago, maybe 17 years ago or so. When I was racing, I'll never forget sitting next to this guy, I never got his name, and I've been ashamed of it ever since. I'm terrible with names anyway. But I asked this guy that was sitting next to me on the plane what he did, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I do wireless distribution of electricity." Come again? Like, do you mean like a magnetic charging thing or something like that? This was before this, iPhones and cell phones and whatnot. He's like, yeah, no, it's like legitimate, like wireless distribution of power. I don't have any wires in my house.
Hmm.
Like what's running on this? It's like my dryer, my oven, my stove, and I was just fascinated by this. I said, okay, well, would this cause radiation? He's like, yeah, but it's like, infrared radiation. Like sometimes you'll get a little bit of a suntan. Well, okay, you're sitting next to me. How long have you been doing this? He's like, 25 years.
No shit.
Why is this not a thing? He goes, oh, because, the oil and gas companies are terrified of this.
Uh-huh.
I said, okay, go into this further. He goes, yeah, well, we lose like 40% electricity or something per mile that copper wire transfers. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And he just went through this whole very, very, very compelling argument. Showed me pictures and video, all sorts of stuff.
Never to be heard of again.
Fascinating. No, I think he was at Intel or HP or something. I mean, it's still there, but it's just amazing to me.
Yeah, actually the first time I heard about this was years ago. I guess when YouTube, I don't know if it was when YouTube was first coming out or what, but apparently there was a guy in the 80s that he literally recorded himself creating an engine that ran off of water on a sidewalk, and apparently he was imprisoned for some random reason.
Yeah. Believe it or not, USPTO will not actually even accept a perpetual engine or a perpetual motion machine.
Really?
Yeah, they won't even accept a patent for it. And perpetual motion I get, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I've seen some really, really fascinating technology that could change the world that hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, it's like somebody's holding it back.
Well, yeah, usually the U.S. government, more than anybody else. Same people that are saying that China and all these other countries are stealing our IP. It's like, well, then get rid of the cost that it takes for filing a patent, and let's flood the market with all the ideas, right?
Exactly. So let's see if we can get two questions in one here. As far as the roadmap goes for Loci, how do you feel about how you all have achieved your targets? Have you all been hitting your targets thus far?
I think we blew almost all of them out of the water.
Right.
I mean, we've been developing like nonstop since really, well, in this current company, May of 2015 or so. And then there was a previous iteration of the company that was dissolved, which was called Incremenza, which was all the way back since 2008 or something. I mean, the roadmaps are a tough thing in general, right? Because all we do is focus on getting more and more features, and literally, I mean, just doing everything we can. And we try to roll something out and like get excited about it, but we can't announce something until it's actually out because there's weird things around SEC laws and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I think we absolutely blew the roadmap out of the water, and we've come out with three products that we didn't even talk about being on the roadmap. I mean, Invention analysis, Loci Protect. And then this new one that's coming out in February, we're hoping for February, which is called the IP buying service, which is basically going to be anybody can add any invention in Loci Search right to a shopping cart, and literally for $279 will literally be able to put in an offer and buy any invention in the world. that is expected to come out in February. We've also got a premium listing service that's going to be coming out for $27.99. Anybody can get their idea put out there and basically make it highly marketable so that they can really start earning licensing revenue from that right away. And we're doing an open sourced patent database as well. So the search is going to be changing a little bit. We're going to be changing some of the shapes. The premium listing ones, the highly licensable technologies, are going to be showing up as stars as opposed to just dots or some shape thereabout. And then the open source patents are going to come up as another shape, probably a square or something like that. I believe, and we're doing research to see if this is true or not, but I believe it will be the only open sourced patent listing service in the world. And I believe, to be clear, like Apache does this for software, but there's nothing that does it across all industries and fields. And to have that then also integrated inside of the searching platform, I'm pretty certain will be a world first. I mean, imagine if you went on Google Patents and people that were paying for AdWords and Google Patents were actually patents that you could license, check out right then and there. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it was, hey, recommendations of things that are already patented. These ones are free. This one costs a little bit of money. I mean, how amazing is that?
If that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So you're telling me
it's pretty wild. It's going to be as cheap as signing up for an Uber driver, to be an Uber driver, to literally come up with an idea, patent the idea, stake it on a blockchain, and start monetizing it inside of the same week, maybe month, right? For the rest of your life. For $27.99. You will be able to, if you've got an invention, you will be able to list that thing and potentially make $1,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue for the rest of your life, or 20 years if it's actually patented.
So you're saying that not to compare you to them, I guess, but you're literally creating the eBay for ideas.
Yeah. So one distinction.
That may be a bad comparison. I don't.
No. It's okay. It's a phrase that we've used a lot, right? Because like sometimes it helps when you're doing the roadshow and whatnot to create some relatability, some comparison. Mm-hmm. There are two different kinds of marketplaces in the world. You've got active listings or active marketplaces like eBay, or just even the stock market is an active listing, right? Where seller puts up their thing or buyer puts up their offer and then they get matched. The other side is called a passive marketplace, and that's like GoDaddy or or even like CoinMarketCap is a passive marketplace, right? A passive listing service or multiple listing service if you've ever bought a house. Yeah. We're really pushing more towards the passive marketplace, right? So the marketplace term is correct, but a lot of people misunderstand what we mean by that. And eBay, the eBay for IP didn't really help that understanding, because that's really an active side. We really want to facilitate people finding these things, just like the multiple listing service facilitates people buying and selling houses. MLS doesn't own the house. They don't broker any of the deals. It's merely a listing of them. And for like domain names, right, those are trademark listing services. So that's also an IP passive marketplace. When you're buying a domain name, all of them are there. You just have to search one.
Right. So this is just crazy. This is what gets me excited about, this space.
Big stuff, man.
And
it's really big stuff. So how do you feel? I mean, as a token holder and as somebody that's followed us, how do you feel about the roadmap? Because it's one thing for the CEO of the company to say this, right. But like, you're a customer, you've used it, you're a user, you're a customer, you're a token holder, and you're a fan. How do you think we've done?
Well, just to say it bluntly, I guess I've been with you all since I first got involved with crypto, like this was the first thing that got me involved with crypto was because I was
Loki was?
yes, and
Wow.
I've
Wow. Thank you.
it is the only project I've stuck with since I started
I'm honored.
in the community. It's through ups and downs in the entire market. I've been active. I can honestly say I've been on your community channel for every single day for over a year now because I'm so excited about this project. And I've been in and out of, I can't even tell you how many channels I've been in. You all have an active community. You have people that give you real answers. It's not a bunch of bullshit. And you're
I'm on there all the time.
right. Yeah, you're achieving the goals that you're setting out. So it's really encouraging when you see stuff like that. You have legitimate operations set up. You have Loci Nexus set up, which we didn't really talk about much, but if I understand correctly, it's to help you out with the SEC laws in the United States.
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, the SEC stuff. It's not so much SEC. It's that the U.S. government doesn't really know, and no lawyer is really clear on what the laws are or the legality. So I actually helped change the laws in another country, specifically so that we could be in the, that we could be legal,
Right.
That we could be in the right. That's a really messed up situation when a company is spending so much money and so much time trying to figure out how to do something legally, and just hitting a brick wall. I mean, it was like hitting our heads against your pallet wall there in the background. It was a mess, but it's a really messed up situation when a company or a founder needs to go and actively promote legality and legislative and regulatory change,
Right.
to understand what the law is. I mean, I also co-founded the Digital Asset Trade Association, which is doing huge things. Like we're the ones responsible for Wyoming, for instance, and Ohio changing, accepting Bitcoin for taxes, and Colorado, and company registration and land registration all over the place. Like that's what that is. I literally had to go and start a trade association, and we've got lawyers that do the lobbying element of it, but just so that we could understand what the laws are.
Right. Well, it's guys like you that are actually going to bring this stuff to the forefront. I mean, if it wasn't for your guys like you, and I know a couple of the CEOs of these companies in crypto space, and no one really, they just kind of give up on it. But you kind of have to go out.
It's frustrating, man. This is bigger than crypto, and it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you, right? And what we're doing. Look, ideas and inventions are unique. They're a completely unique asset class. When you create gold, or when you mine gold, or you mine oil, or whatever, that gets expended and gets used for something that you're bringing value to, right? Whether it be gold for microprocessors or oil for cars, it gets used. But intellectual property as an asset, one invention breeds thousands more. And those thousands all continue to build in value. Now, when I say value, I don't mean monetary value. I mean real value. Humanitarian, societal impact, like real value, the value that sends us to the moon. Sorry. And the value that heals people, right? Heals our planet and cures cancer and makes our lives more productive. This is real value. If I wasn't fighting tooth and nail for this sort of just ethical and moral responsibility that I have here to make this thing succeed, I'd be a sham. Right? This is way too big and way too important. What Loci is doing now, I can honestly tell you, will completely shift the course of human civilization. Not one decade, not our lives, the rest of humans. And that is fucking awesome. that I get to wake up every day and change the world. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Talk about a use case.
Yeah. Yeah, what's your market? It's civilization.
Yeah.
What do you mean civilization? Well, our market is to change the way ideas get discovered so that more things can get created.
Everything around you.
Yeah, like the thousands of patents that exist around curing cancer that are all proven effective.
Right.
Cures for Lyme disease, cures for patents and inventions around heat exchanging, right, and battery technologies and water-based heat exchangers or heaters themselves, right? Like all of these things in the right hands will make huge impact. And the system is just broken right now.
Absolutely. I think it holds us back. I think we could essentially be living in a utopia right now. Maybe we're just not.
Well,
we just have.
Yeah, I mean, look,
ahead.
I'm a capitalist at heart, in some essences, but not all. The reality is that enterprises are really, really good at executing, building things, right? Getting it out there, mass distribution. Enterprises are fantastic at that, but they're horrible at being innovative and nimble. Individuals are horrible at executing, but they're amazing at being innovative and nimble. Why on earth these things are conflated together is one of the greatest mysteries to me. Except greed, right? That's the only reason I can think of. Instead, we should bifurcate these, split them apart, and make it so that every individual that has an idea that can bring some real sustainable value to human civilization gets enough to be able to live from it. If you contribute to human civilization or the planet, whatever, if you contribute to this, you shouldn't need to worry about where you're getting food and water.
Right.
And the corporations shouldn't need to worry about where these ideas are coming from. They should be able to get them on tap because they're the ones building these things. And it should cost next to nothing for both of them.
It's got to be a crazy feeling knowing that you and your dad started all this. Because I mean, you've basically renewed my excitement for this project.
Thanks, man.
With this interview. I mean, not that I've always been excited, but it's good to hear things like this.
It's, you know what? It's really hard doing this job. I would not wish the CEO job, especially a CEO of a post-ICO company, on anybody. Not on my worst enemy. Because the reality is that, one, you get no credit for anything. Right? If something goes right, that's your job.
Yeah.
Right? If something goes wrong, oh my God, your head's rolling. Even if you had nothing to do with it, right? Oh, well, they were under you. Two, I don't have a boss. I have 20,000 bosses. Right? I have customers, shareholders, token holders.
Right.
Right? Everybody that expects me to explain and talk about these things all the time. Well, how can I talk about these things all the time while also building the things all the time? Three, I'm under that microscope all the time. Anything that I say wrong or just have an off day, I mean, literally, I'm sick right now, and I'm doing this interview, right? Any time I say, act the least bit human, people pounce on me, right? And they use things. This is the reason why we hate things like roadmaps. Like, wow, you missed your roadmap. It's like, guess what? We uncovered it, and it was really hard to build. Our 8 to 10 developers or something are going around the clock, but they have families, and they also need sleep occasionally. It doesn't, they're working 80 to 100 hours. Like,
nah, y'all don't need any sleep.
What are we supposed to do, right? Yeah, it's just tough.
Yep.
It's just tough. But I love doing these things, especially with customers.
Yeah, I know y'all are staying pretty busy.
We're just doing everything we can every day doing better tomorrow than we're doing today.
Right.
That's all I can ever ask my staff of, and I hope that that's all that any customer would ever ask. Right.
I think it shows. I mean, I think some people get a little bitter because they focus too much on the crypto side of things, and if they've sold their house or whatever, that's their own problem. They shouldn't bring it into good projects like this, but it happens, and you just have to kind of deal with them.
It's too early for me to actually talk about the plan, the specifics on the plan, but we are getting ready to launch some solutions for the coin price. By the way, in a nutshell, we're going to be reducing the circulating supply. It's not going to be quite in a form like traditional buybacks. Those historically don't really work for anybody. If we did a buyback, for instance, like right now, I don't know what the price is, but I think it's like half a penny or something.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to set a price. So if we set like 10 cents, then anybody that bought in at a penny would be ecstatic, right?
Right.
But anybody that bought in at 70 cents or $1 would be really upset.
Oh, yeah.
So we have this rolling plan. We sell the coin right on the website for $2.50, which, by the way, I think it was 97% of our users buy it at $2.50.
Wow.
Yeah. They'd really rather not deal like $50 or 5 cents.
Right. I can actually.
I can't be bothered. I'll spend the $50. Right. And there's a global footprint of that, by the way, not just U.S. talent, not just U.S. people.
Mm-hmm.
They'd rather spend that $50. So
that's actually encouraging to hear, because I was wondering how far out of the realm of blockchain and crypto you all are taking this. And
yeah, no, I think we're in every country right now except Greenland and 3 African nations.
Wow.
And again, I mean, that's including Antarctica, I believe. I think there's 1 user in Antarctica. It's pretty wild. Like the analytics, that sort of thing gives you such pride, because you realize it's like we're only in 2 languages. We're only in English and Mandarin. I don't know if you know that, by the way. We have a Mandarin version as well. Chinese Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
But we're only in 2 languages, and everybody all around the world is using this thing in different languages. Like, that's fascinating to me. But yeah, so we sell the coin for $2.50, and essentially for every $100 of coin that we sell, we'll be buying a certain amount from the market. Now, we've always said that was our plan, and we're making good on that. What we won't be doing, at least in the near term, though, is selling that coin back out to the market. We'll instead be reducing the circulating supply and kind of just putting buy pressure.
Gotcha. So I should go.
All of our products will be sold through coin, by the way.
I'm glad you cut me off, because I was going to say something I shouldn't have said.
Okay. Yeah, no. So right up until before the launch of Loci Protect, which we've got a couple of big press things, which is why it's out and it's live on the site in the application, but there hasn't been like a big announcement about it because we're waiting for some press stuff to come out. But so invention analysis is $50 or $49. The provisional patent filing is going to be $79. Both of which are going to be sold through coin, not through dollars. It'll be $2.50 equivalent of how many coin. And then we've got the Invention buying service, which will be about $279, also sold through coin. And the premium listing service, which will be about $27.99, which will also be through coin, and that'll be monthly recurring. So we went from having 1 revenue stream to now 4 revenue streams, and all of which will be using coin.
And that's possible through Stripe. Like you could go in there and purchase without actually owning.
Bancor.
What is it?
Bancor. It's through Bancor.
Oh, I mean, from like when you go to the website, someone that doesn't know what crypto is.
Yeah, we use Stripe integration as well. I don't know if we're still using Stripe,
Okay.
but the way that the crypto stuff happens, I believe, is through Bancor integration.
Gotcha.
I haven't been like that deep in the crypto dev side of it for a little while.
Gotcha.
I'm really focusing on like where the future is right now.
All right, so just got a couple more questions for you here, and we can, I guess, wrap this
Sure.
up. Question from my community from Crypto Newton. I'll actually answer this for him. Well, I'll answer it for him with a question because I guess he hasn't been following recently. He wants to know what are the marketing efforts that Loci is taking to scale things up. And
Sure.
I'll follow with another question. You were on Fox Business recently, was it?
Yep.
And
And I'll probably be going back here soon.
I was going to ask
as
that.
well.
You were cut off because, breaking news or whatever.
Yeah, the GM
Yeah.
closures. I did get to sit with the chairman of Chrysler though.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Um,
That was pretty cool.
yeah,
I still have it recorded on my TiVo.
I kind of saved that interview a bit because off camera she was like, I'm gonna have to kick you off because of this breaking news. Do you have anything that valid that you can chime in on GM? I was like, I used to be a GM race engineer. In fact, the uniform sitting right there.
Which is perfect.
That you can see probably the Chevy logo at the top there. She's like, great, let's do it. And so I extended on for like another 4 or 5 minutes or something. Yeah, so there's a difference between PR and marketing though. PR is really driving awareness of the product and the company, and that's things like Fox. When somebody's asking about marketing though, they're probably asking about like Google AdWords, Facebook ads, Instagram stuff, social media, banner ads, and stuff like that. Last year, we got in full gear with this. I'll spare you the numbers of how much we spent last year versus this year, but this year we're expecting it to be about 10x.
Really?
Of what we spent, and mind you, that went, that got us this 11,000 users or so. With 100% month over month growth, we're looking at like adding tens and tens of thousands of users this year. This is going to be a big year for growth for us. This is the year of revenue and like really driving users. We're expecting that by March we'll effectively be feature complete, right? Everything from search, analysis, protection, and monetization, all done. And then it's just iterative improvements and expanding from there.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Sounds good, bud.
All right.